Welcome to Dryson Learns Things. I'm Dryson, and today I'm talking to Jade Scherr. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks again for being on the show. I appreciate it. We are talking about a campaign you're working on about legalizing marijuana in North Dakota.
Heck
Tell
yeah.
me a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then let's just jump into it.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm Jade. I'm the founder of HexaHive. We're a strategic marketing agency in Bismarck, North Dakota. Basically, we're a full service agency that the only thing we don't do is video, but everything else, we just put strategy at the forefront of what we do. So my big thing is like making sure things have a purpose, which seems like common sense, but I felt like was something that was kind of lacking in our local market here.
It's funny, I think, as marketers, we get so excited about, like, we got to do this or do this and do that. And then sometimes, just as people, we tend to forget the bigger picture of how it's going to be used and having that strategy in place.
Yes. Yeah. And I feel like it's easy to get like stuck in your way of doing things, or on the flip side, like you mentioned, like doing things that aren't realistic. So kind of riding that careful balance there is what we pride ourselves on.
Absolutely. Well, hey, you have a really cool initiative you're working on, so tell me about it.
Yeah. So we are working to legalize marijuana in North Dakota. So when I messaged you about it, I was a little bit nervous because I've had one person yell at me when I pitched that as an idea to them before too. Um,
I love controversial topics. The more I can like polarize a conversation, the more fun it's going to be for like everyone watching it, because you're either going to be for it or against it. There's really no middle ground.
yeah. Well, and that's where like my thing is just hearing things out and getting to the why behind it, because I'm a firm believer that you can learn something from a legalization campaign and apply it to a Catholic school. You can really like take things that are on different spectrums and apply those across. But our role with the campaign is we're kind of acting as the behind the scenes campaign manager too, which is a little bit of a different role than we're used to, but we stepped up to the plate because we recognized someone needed to do it. And then the overall strategy execution behind all of it. And the part that's been really interesting, I feel like every state says it, but North Dakota prides itself on being different than other states. And they're like, nobody else gets it. We're just different. And so when doing something political on a really controversial topic, it took a lot of research while also needing to make some decisions of like, okay, these strategies worked in other states, but we recognize they wouldn't work in North Dakota for this reason, or maybe this would. And so that's been like a lot of behind the scenes on that part.
Can you give me a specific example?
Yeah. So overall on tactics of like how to change public perception in other states, some things that have worked really well is to like have a giant marijuana leaf out in the public, like doing that on a road and just helping with building awareness. Here, that would not fly as well. And we tried to talk with different people, really get an understanding, because the other challenge that we have here is that like, and it's pretty common across the country, but the demographics that are showing up to vote are traditionally, like North Dakota is a more conservative state, and the older you are, the more likely you are to be really conservative. And conservatives, marijuana don't typically go like hand in hand. And so how do you get people to vote that are in support of it, while also helping people that don't personally use it understand how it can benefit them from the taxation perspective? It's funded schools in other states, like things like that. But getting past the barrier of like North Dakota just has a stigma around it, and I think most states do while they're looking at legalizing it, is like getting past that stigma in an authentic way.
Yeah, I think I'm in South Dakota, and I think we have a very similar mentality here, where you have maybe the younger generations like, we're progressive, we're doing it, we want this thing, and your older generation's kind of like, why? We don't need that. But when you can have push past that and say, hey, there's more of a deeper conversation we can have here. Here's some benefits. Here's this and that. You can kind of open the door for cross the aisle conversations. That's pretty cool. So the things you've done so far, what are some of the things you've been pushing?
Yeah. So it's been a little bit of kind of eat an elephant one bite at a time kind of thing. And what I mean with that is that we were really intentional. And with all of our clients, we're like, we want to use their money as if it was our own. And so in this case, we got involved before the measure was like, before the law was crafted, basically. And so then at that point, it was like, okay, let's think about understanding the like citizens of North Dakota, what would they want, helping to lay the foundation, doing the branding, the website, that kind of thing at that point. But then the next phase that you have to do is you have to collect so many signatures to get it on the ballot. And so then at that point, it was like, well, we don't want to spend a bunch of money on awareness and other pieces yet if we don't know if we're going to get all the signatures, because we only had about 6 weeks to get 15,000 signatures, which is not a lot of time.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so the other measure that was like working on collecting signatures was doing it over a year, and they submitted at the same time. So that was where we were on an expedited timeline there. So at that phase, we started really leaning into like the more traditional routes of like media relations, just getting more coverage in North Dakota on it to help people understand that aspect, and then getting involved with more behind the scenes organizations that do a lot of like advocating for policy. So went from the political realm there. Once we did get enough signatures, got approval, then we went into hyper mode. So now we're going to start having, and we've had some digital ads going out for a while that have been testing messaging, because again, it was like what messaging worked for other states wasn't really aligned with North Dakota values, other pieces. So we did a really big testing campaign to see like, okay, what resonates. It was really interesting on that front too, because it's so controversial that it really depends on what demographics you're looking at too, and then what area of the state. Just like South Dakota, it's like you have your more populated cities and then your more rural. Their viewpoints are traditionally going to be very different, and so then there comes a point of like choosing your battles a little bit of like, who are you going to focus on. So now we're starting to roll out billboards, bathroom ads, out-of-home advertising. That was really interesting too, because there were a lot of places that would not talk to us because of what it was on. So they
Really?
were like, I won't take your money, basically. And that was really interesting to me, because I was like, just because you're advertising for something doesn't mean you have to personally support it. And a lot of them were like, I don't personally have an issue with it. I just don't want to get yelled at by someone else. And that's like a common fear. And I was like, why is this a thing? Like,
It's really funny you say that, because this is a complete sidetrack. My brother and I, we bought a mobile billboard last year, and we've been taking it to different events. And we had a political person reach out about something, and my brother and I were very different in our political beliefs. Like, we
yeah.
are left and right. And it was hysterical, because the first conversation we had is saying, we don't care what the message is, we just want the money. So it's
Yeah.
funny to hear that there's people on the other side of that coin.
Yes, you need to talk to them a little bit. I was just fascinated because I was like, you won't even hear it out. You don't even want a proof of like what the messaging is, which is like also like conservative for what the topic is. So that's been interesting, is like navigating vendors with that. And then cannabis, most people don't know, has a lot of restrictions on what you can do for advertising across platforms. So on like Facebook, we can't say marijuana or cannabis. And so like talking about an issue without saying that then
That's a challenge.
poses a challenge, yes. And then also political ads have a lot of limitations too. So kind of double regulated on two sides of navigating that. But yeah, now we're just getting to the phase of like everything's starting to get out there. We ordered 2,000 yard signs. Those were gone in like a week and a half. And
Yeah.
so really leaning into a balance of traditional approaches with also digital to be able to kind of change things on the fly.
With a little bit of that data to follow up with what is working.
Yes. Yeah.
So navigating two sets of regulations, how has that been, and how have you guys overcome that challenge?
So luckily, we have been involved with the medical marijuana program here for a few years now, and North Dakota's medical marijuana program on the regulation side is the strictest in the country. So we're used to like really, really heavy regulations. So then the regulations for this that come from like the platform side seem way less than what we're used to for that. So it feels kind of like you have free reign a little bit, because we're just
Yep.
so used to like, in North Dakota, you can't share even something on Facebook without getting approval from the Department of Health. And you can't respond to a Google review, send an email, like everything has to be approved. So this feels like we know the regulations from like the federal standpoint, don't have to deal with the state regulations. So that's a lot easier. So it's more just how the political regulations kind of meld with the cannabis ones. But overall, I feel like it's really understanding what's your box and then finding the most creative way to get outside of it.
I love that. I love that. Well, Jade, that is our 10-minute conversation for today. So I want to say again, thank you for being on the show and sharing this campaign you're working on. As always, Dryson Learns Things is brought to you by the Discovery Workshop from Made by Things, your animation and video content partner, to figure out what are those conversations that need to happen behind closed doors to be able to come up with a big idea and then give you that a la carte style menu of everything you need. So again, Jade, thank you so much. This was a great time, and we will talk to everyone later. Dryson Learns Things is brought to you by the Discovery Workshop from Made by Things. If you are looking for a content partner to help you brainstorm, set goals, and create content that truly resonates with your audience, check us out at madebythings.com/discovery.